Hello and welcome to today's video. This time we've got another box of vintage main series penguins to have a look at, clean up, repair as best we can. We're just edging into 1960 now, so sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay, so starting off with Two Adolescents. This one's not perfect by any means. That's something on the front there, looks like a bit of film or old tape. Yeah, a bit of a beaten up one, this one to start, alas. But we are 1960 penguin, and he's a bit beaten up, that. So 1460 on the old upgrade list, which is, as some people have said, how big is your actual upgrade list? Well, it's quite big, so it's growing all the time as I do these videos. But I don't think that's a bad thing, because if I came across that, I would sort of double check my list to see if I picked it up or not. And if I saw it and I saw that it had a little UG next to it, meaning upgrade, then I would probably pick a nice one up. 1461, The Portuguese Escape. This one's only a little bit better. It's a bit grubby in all honesty, but I'll let that one go. That's not as bad as the last one. Major Thompson and I. So that's quite nice, isn't it, with the illustrations? Since I last saw you last week, my podcast, the Golden Age Crime podcast, She Done It, has been released. A nice science fiction one here. It's called She Done It, and you can just go to shedoneit.com. And my episode's called The Green Penguin. So Caroline, who is the host, does like a history, a little potted history of penguin books themselves, and then I jump in with my view of collecting them as a collector, and really great. It's come out really well, so I'm very pleased with that. So if you get a chance, do go to the She Done It podcast. It's available in the UK on BBC Sounds, as well as across all the usual sort of podcast apps. So just look up She Done It, all one word, and you'll find it. Butterfield 8. Now, I filled up an entire comic box of books, as I usually do, but I'm unsure if there's any, if there's going to be extensive work to do or not. Here's a bit of a classic, Lord of the Flies here. And it's interesting, but most of the books from this sort of period now in my Penguin main series collection are ones that I've found in the wild. They've not really come from other collectors or through dealers' catalogues. These are just ones that I found out and about. So they do vary in quality. They're probably lesser condition than the earlier books, in actual fact, which in a lot of cases have come collector to collector, or they are sort of from book dealers, where there's like a level of quality, shall we say. But so far we've not needed to do anything on these. They are just what they are, really. Finally, a crime one, Marjorie Allingham, Hide My Eyes. But yeah, these are all dating from 1960. So 64 years as we look at it. So this is a real favourite of mine, The Gathering Storm. And this was part of Penguin's 25-year celebration. This is one of the books that was a key volume. It's a shame that they never did the other 5 volumes in Churchill's Second World War history. But this is an upgrade to my original one. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I've read the full 6-book series 3 times now in my life, and every time I get more out of it. Very good indeed. So recommended that if you've never read Churchill's History of the Second World War, it's worth it. Here's another great one here, Anatomy of a Murder. Very nice. So again, so far we're doing really well. Not anything needs a clean. This one's got typical sort of Foxinger books from this period. Penguin were really keen on D.H. Lawrence, and they published a lot of his stuff with a view to getting Lady Chatterley in print, and they eventually just went ahead and did it. And of course, it resulted in the quite famous court case. So, but that had never stopped Alan Lane in the past, so it came out amongst a little batch of other Lawrences, which we're having a look at here. England. And yeah, it was published and it was regarded as basically obscene. So even though it isn't really, so Penguin were taken to court, and then Penguin themselves brought on a whole series of learned literary people to stand up for Chatterley, and evidently they were obviously successful, So here is the original first printing of Chatterley, and it wasn't a low print run by any means. I think it had like 100,000 possibly, but there were people with piles of it. There was people burning it, if you can believe it. Disgusting. How dare they? But this was the very first one, and this is surprisingly scarce. This first edition. Got a little bit of pencil there. I don't know why. Maybe just it was sold to a lot of non-booky people, and perhaps copies didn't get saved. Maybe a percentage did just get destroyed. I don't know. Certainly there was reports of some copies getting seized. However, once the trial had happened, they hurriedly released this one, which is the most common one. And I suspect this reprint, with the introduction by Richard Hogarth, who was one of the witnesses, I believe is probably the most common one. And this, I don't know, but I imagine this had a huge run, possibly 250,000, something like that, after Penguin were cleared in court and they could officially publish this one. So yeah, this is the second edition with an introduction by Richard Hogarth. This is actually from 1965, but the second printing is actually 61. So this is a later one, but it looks exactly like that with the introduction. And Penguin themselves decided to release it the 50th anniversary of that. So I guess this would have been 2011. Let's have a little look. 2010 rather. 2010, I have for 1960, yeah. There we are. So it's got some little bits there. Some bits by Steve Hare, the sadly departed editor of the Penguin Collectors Society magazine and a noted Penguin historian. I've got quite a lot of his books in my collection, actually, not Penguins, but other series. Really nice guy. And there we are. So it's basically putting the Chatterley into context, really, So I think that's a really nice addition. I don't know if you can still get that, but I got it at the time. I thought, that's definitely worth picking up. And I suppose Lawrence's one of his other biggest books after Chatterley probably is Women in Love. It's interesting that Lawrence himself, all the books have this designed logo. He was an author that had such magnitude within Penguin that they gave him his own logo, and pretty much they published his entire backlist was published by Penguin over the years. Right. He should have died hereafter. Cyril Hare. Now, some of these might actually benefit from a little bit of a polish. I still have to tread carefully, but these books do have a coating which isn't glossy like a modern day book, but it will enable us to have a little bit of a wipe over just to get off any fingerprints and what have you, Captain Cutthroat. So we'll go through the books first of all, then I'll brush them, and then finally we'll give them a very light clean on some of the books. Vladimir Nabokov, I've never got into him. Lots of people say he's very good, but he was never an author that really appealed to me much. Just a tiny bit of glue required at the top of the spine there. Nothing too much. So I'm just going to get my screwdriver and slide a little bit in there. Just where it's starting to come away. Yeah. There we are. I mean, not the greatest of copies, but it's funny, you know, years ago, I wouldn't have batted an eyelid at that. But nowadays, my standards have got quite a bit higher. And I look at some of these, I think, oh, they're a little bit more the worse for wear. But better copies will eventually come along. It says £1, week 52. I'm not sure what that means. Really awkward place. Lovely. The Law. Film tie-in. Yeah, so one thing on the She Done It podcast that was also announced on my episode is that every other month, Caroline, the host, is going to read the Green Penguins in order. So the first one was Penguin number 5, which is The Unpleasantness at the Bologna Club, by Dorothy Sayers. So I'm going to read that one. I'm going to read them along with her. I think that'll be quite a bit of fun. So look out for more details on the next episode of She Done It about that, but that should be quite good. Of course, the next crime in the series is number 6, which is The Mysterious Affair at Styles, but that was only around for a few months, and then it was hastily replaced with 6A, which is Murder on the Links. I'm not sure what she's going to do there, if we're going to read both books back to back, because theoretically that should be the way to do it. Here we are. See, that's how I wish they all were, nice with white spines, you know, a little bit of aging, which you don't mind. It's just it's a constant battle, I think, to keep the collection looking great. You either take out all the ones which are tatty and not have a copy at all, which, you know, I've known collectors do that, or you just keep them as I do, as fillers, until better ones come along, you know. I just don't have enough penguins through my hands to be constantly upgrading them. I just don't, because I'm not buying job lots myself. I'm not a penguin dealer. You know, I haven't really got time to devote to doing that. Although I've had a couple of people contact me since I've had the YouTube channel, and both chaps are quite elderly now, but with insane collections. One guy's got 60 boxes, which he's slowly sorting his way through, and I was able to get one of the crossword books I needed last year off him. He was able to dig that one out for me. Sadly, he hasn't got Death on the Borough Council, which is my last one, of course. Yet another one here. It's a biography of Lawrence, the Intelligent Heart, using his logo again. I think this is probably the most scarce one of all the Lawrence-related titles. Oh, look at this. It's actually a review. The enclosed book will be published by Penguin Books on Denver Surf in 1960. That's nice. I love little review slips like that. I've got a couple. I've actually got one in a Graham Greene, and the book is absolutely mint. I don't think it was ever read and reviewed, but it's a review copy. That's quite nice, isn't it? I had no idea this was in this one. I love that sort of ephemera, particularly when you come across it when I had no idea it was even there. So That's lovely, isn't it? That is gorge. Excellent stuff. Right, on to the next few. So, bitter honeymoon. Oh dear. Well, the last thing you want your honeymoon to be is bitter. But a nice copy of that. Lovely white pages. And they are out there like that. It's just, as I said, when I've been out and about looking for books, I would come across lower grade ones, and rather than take nothing home, I'd usually succumb just so I could say I got something, when really I should have just come home empty-handed. But such is the allure of being a book collector. You don't want that ever to happen, really, because it's almost like admitting defeat, isn't it? You know, if I go into a bookshop, a second-hand bookshop, I want to come out with something. You know, if I can find it. From a View to a Death. This is Anthony Paul. He's the author of A Dance to the Music of Time, which Penguin published the first 9 of. They didn't quite do the whole series, but they published some of his other books first before they started on Dance. And this is one of those ones. I'm not sure if it's his first book, From a View to Death. It's definitely one of his early ones. 1933. This may actually be his first book. I've not read these. I've read the entire Dance series, but I've not read that one. I've not read Venusberg, I think is the other early one. But a great author. The Widow, Francis King. And you notice that all the Penguins that we're looking at now, very, very few have just got typographical covers. These have all got some sort of illustration of some sort, albeit quite subtle, as it were. You know, they're not like full colour ones like the pans of this period, which were, you know, works of art, you know, literally beautiful painted jackets, but they were for a different sort of an audience, I think. Another one by Nancy Mitford. A very interesting person she was, that's for certain. Lord Hornblower. I'm surprised that this one looks a little out of place. Yeah, it's still the first Penguin from '64, but it was evidently a number that's been gone back and used again. It's actually slightly lesser grade than I would like, this one, particularly since it's a Hornblower. I thought I had the Hornblowers in multiples and also in really nice condition, but I suspect this is the final one from Penguin for a while, because the other ones came earlier, which we've already shown. So I'm going to put that on the upgrade list, because it's got the 1813 on the front and it's got that tear at the bottom of the back cover there. I'll keep it though, because I absolutely love the Hornblower books, and I go back to them again and again and again. I really, really just love them. And I was introduced to them by my dad. He gave me the first one. He said, "I'll have a read of Mr. Midshipman Hornblower." It's not the first book, but it's the first one chronologically in Hornblower's life, and it's when he first joins the Navy as a midshipman, and it's just fantastic. Really, really great. I highly recommend that series. Gene Roddenberry of Star Trek fame was a huge fan of them as well, as was Churchill, actually. As was Churchill, I mentioned earlier. Far, Far the Mountain Peak, another John Masters. Quite a big thick one, this. See, that's the condition of that is much more really what I should be aiming for these days. It's just a shame that, you know, I'm trying to get, you know, the first 3,000 penguins. That's not an easy job. So consequently, sometimes you just, you know, you don't go around, you don't think about upgrading, you just want to get, you know, more books that you've not actually got at all. And I think that's sort of where I am at the moment with a lot of these. Anyway, another science fiction, Outward Urge, and John Wyndham. £2 inside there. So I would be interested. I know I've got a slightly different audience on this channel, and they just like to enjoy seeing the books getting repaired and tidied up. But I would be interested to know if any of you have consequently seen stuff on here and you thought, oh, I'll give that a read, I'll give that a try. Or you've seen stuff that you think, oh, I'd like to collect those myself, you know, and you've started a collection on the back of watching the channel. I think that would be really quite interesting. I know certainly I've inspired many Star Wars collectors, and I've inspired Star Wars YouTube channels, believe it or not. Which I think is very gratifying, really. I never expected to do that, since this is only something I do really for fun, you know. But it's all good. Right. The Breaking of Bumbo. Okay. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to the Green Penguin read-along. I think that's going to be quite a bit of fun. So I said, if you fancy it, with the first book being Unpleasantness at the Bloner Club, which is actually free as an ebook from Amazon, because the book long out of copyright, I believe. So all the author has been dead more than 70 years, so consequently the book is a copyright free. So if you want to read along and listen along, I do suggest going for that. I'm certainly looking forward to it. I don't want to be reading my original number 5 Penguin, though. That's a little bit fragile. So I've picked up a cheap hardback off eBay for $2.99, which I'm going to read, which is like a period reprint. It was from the 1940s, so a little bit after the Penguin edition. Now, these Doctor books, I'm trying to remember if I read a few as a kid. I remember seeing the movies. I think there were 6 or 7 in the movie series. And I remember these being quite common. Now, by the look of it, I've got 4 here. I don't know if that's the full run. They've got very, very distinctive covers on them. So no idea if these are the original. This is the original 4. I'm sure there's more than 4. Doctor at Large. There's 4 listed on the back there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 there. There's 10 there, and I suspect, as I recall, there was, I think, 6 or 7 or maybe more movies. I'm trying to remember who the Doctor was. I think it may have been Peter Ustinov in the movies, but I can't quite remember, you know. A little bit of a nick at the top, but can't do anything about that. This is the first Penguin classic, a Penguin modern classic we've seen. This is a very early one, isn't it? Miss Lonely Hearts and a Cool Meal. I wonder if this was one of the very earliest ones as a Penguin modern classic, which we love. 1961. I really do love the modern classics. Even today, 60 odd years later, it's still a really, really terrific list. And I have done a dedicated video on my modern classics collection on my main channel, so just look that up. It's a very popular video, and for good reason, because the books are just gorgeous. Cousin Harriet. Some faint pencil there. There we are. Right, The Man in the Net. Bit of a grubby copy, this one, but it's still okay. I would still be okay to read that one. So I'm not going to pop it on the upgrade list yet. I think eventually, a lot of these, when I've got a bit more time, I will start buying in Penguin collections, because they are out there. And as I said, I do get contacted quite a bit. The thing is, at the moment, potentially, hopefully this year, 2024, I'll be moving house, and I'll be able to, I'm looking to move somewhere which is going to have a dedicated library. I'm going to build a dedicated library. And this ex-librarist John Harris. I don't know who he was, but I'm going to take it out. Spotted Deer, yeah, J.H. Williams. My grandfather knew J.H. Williams, and I've got a copy of Elephant Bill signed by Elephant Bill to my granddad. I've got that in hardback, it is. I've got that in my hardback collection. Never a book that I've really fancied, but it did get re-released as a young adult book for youngsters as a Peacock, which was like Penguin's sort of teenage list. But yeah, don't know that much about him. Prep School, James Kenward. Something you don't really hear of nowadays outside the private school system. Great book on prep schools was, well, private schools in general, boarding schools, was To Serve Them All My Days by R.F. Delderfield. That's a great book. Maigray's First Case, Simonon. Well, we like him, although these translations have been superseded now. They've done some much more modern translations of all the Maigrays. And apparently, I've read the first one actually, and it was excellent. And the other good thing about the Maigrays is they're so short. So I think he would knock them out in a couple of weeks, sort of thing, So reading them today is quite effortless, you know what I mean? So if you're in the mood for a bit of crime, I do recommend the Maigrays. They're all pretty consistently good, all the ones that I've read. I haven't read them all, must have read about 12 or 14 or something like that, and they're all right. Another author I really like, which is P.G. Wodehouse, and that one has got a bit of the cover that needs to. But let's go through the book first. Performing Flea. I've got all of Wodehouse in vintage Penguin, pre-1970 Penguin. I've got everything that came out, and that's a lot, believe me. However, they're not all in A1 condition. But that's quite a simple little fix, that one. Like that. But evidently been read a few times. Yeah, self-portrait in letters. So yeah, it's his collected letters. And of course he was coming towards the end of his life. He lived a long time. But by 1960, so we're in 61 now? Yeah, we're in 1961. He was coming to near the end of his life, but great writer. I very much love P.G. Wodehouse. Everything I've read of his I've really enjoyed. Here's another one here. Man with Two Left Feet. Another one looking a little bit the worse for wear. This is actually quite a tatty copy, considering my other Woodhouses are pretty nice. I'm going to put this on the upgrade list. It's just a bit too tatty for me. So 1601, The Man with Two Left Feet, P.G. Wodehouse. I will, however, put a bit of glue in there just to stop it getting any worse. But that is not really up to scratch anymore. But as I said, when I've collected penguins, I started when I was at school, and over 30 years ago, and back then I didn't care anything about condition. It's only in more recent years, when space is at a premium, you don't really want to have lower grade books in your collection if you can help it. But at the same time, if I pick up a new copy of that, I'll probably put it on my pile to read when I'm sort of on holiday. Read it on holiday and just leave it in the hotel library, which is what I've done in the past. Right, the Thurber album, James Thurber, quite like him. He does the cartoons as well. Don't know if there's any illustrations in this one, it's just all text, yeah. Very nice. Here's a bit of a classic. This one does go for a few pounds. I've seen this sell as much as £25 for the original Penguin printing of this one. And it's the great movie tie-in, the Audrey Hepburn one. Sort of classic pose there as well. So I'm pretty sure this is a first printing. Yeah, 1961. Little name inside. But great book. Really like Truman Capote. Really do. I've got a great Penguin Modern Classic, ironically, with a lot of his stuff in. And I bought a little job lot of 4 or 5 Penguin Modern Classics, all in the modern library, all of Capote, and they're just great. They're really good. I would. He's one of those authors I'd like to collect in a hardback first if I could, but they're a little expensive, particularly that one. In Cold Blood, I think, is one of my favourites of his. The Doors of Sleep, Thurber Warner. Well, there's one with just like a little mark on the front that you can't quite, it doesn't quite want to come off that. Never quite sure what it is. Diana Cooper, The Rainbow Comes and Goes. So once again, it's a little bit the worse for wear, this, in all honesty. Yeah, not the greatest copy. I'm not going to make it a priority to upgrade it. It's not that bad, but it's not that great either. Moonlight at Midday, Sally Carringer. Interesting photograph cover again. Two photo covers back to back. Lovely. Crime one here now. Lawman of Powder Valley. Gun Justice in the West. So it looks like it's a Western. But of course, Penguin wouldn't really do a Western, so they've published this as under like a crime banner. It's really thin as well. Just 140 pages with large type. So yeah, that looks like a bit of a cheeky Western that they've slipped out there. The Wounds of Hunger. Louis Spotter. Okay. Another crime one. A Taste for Honey. Gerald Hurd. Now this one, once again, I suspect is one that's been published much later, and they've gone back to fill the number in. So it's 1626. Crime title, Mary Carter Roberts. Yeah, Romick Marber. So he's the really great designer. Romick Marber, really, really good designer. But does say published 61 again. So how unusual that they've used that. Okay. And the last one is actually Venusberg. So we mentioned about Anthony Paul, and I think this is his second one prior to Dance to the Music of Time. Venusberg, yeah. So that one and the one we did earlier, View to a Death, From a View to a Death, both quite scarce hardbacks, but paperbacks are much more common. And that was who did that cover again? Was it Osbert Lancaster? So Osbert Lancaster went on and did the covers for the first 9 of the Dance to the Music of Time series, and they're in Penguin, and they're really, really great. But for some reason, Powell seems to have fallen out of favour with Penguin, and the last few were published by Fontana, and all the rights went with him, which is a real shame. So there isn't a uniform set in Penguin at all, in Vintage Penguin, which is a real shame, because they're much better than the Fontana editions. Anyway, that's all the books. I'm just going to pause there, and then we'll give them a brush down, and then finally a brief polish. Right then, so let's get brushing. Now, I'm not sure, these, obviously they're still 60 years old, and some of them are going to be worse than others, but I don't think there's going to be anything horrifically dusty, Not looking through them. It's not like these books are from the 1930s or anything like that, in which case they are much more susceptible to dust and dirt. 10 years ago. Or 14 years ago, I should say. Blimey, 2010. Even now, I don't think Penguin mine their archive anything like as good as they perhaps could. But, you know, at least they do something with it. Penguin themselves, next year, are celebrating 90 years in existence. Absolutely incredible, really. Lovely. That's the second palm. Yeah, certainly not too bad, these on the whole. I don't feel like I should be wearing a face mask, let's put it that way. But I am wondering if I do move house and I end up putting my studio in the library, as it were, so actually film in the library. I don't think I'm going to be able to do the brushing part of my videos in there because I'm not going to want to spread all the dust around. It's fine in the studio here because it's none of my collection. It's just, you know, the equipment and the soundproofing, really. So there's nothing to really, it doesn't really matter getting dusty. But I wouldn't want to be doing this actually in my actual library. So I might have to give that some thought. I may have to make a particular area of the house just for the brushing part. Which seems a bit silly, but I want to keep the library as dust-free as possible, you know. The phrase dusty library is not going to apply to my library. I can tell you that. I think we can do all of these in one hit. Yes, very little dust coming off these, which is a nice thing, because I have been cleaning some quite dusty books lately. Right, last stack for brushing. One slightly dusty one here. asked for you to brush, and we shall just give them a gentle wipe over with the polish. Lovely. Right, so got my Mr. Sheen, got my cloth. Now I'm not going to spend hours on these because it was just a handful of them needed a little bit of a wipe. So not all the books really. So I just sort of target the worst sort of parts of the covers and just give them a brief once over. Because some are just worse than others really. And it's amazing how much sometimes you can get off these. And that one has a little mark on it on the front there. So looking ahead, I think we've got the next Pan video we got are the Pan Majors, which are big, thick books. I'm looking forward to giving them a good clean because some of those are not in the greatest of shape. And we will continue once in the rotation. We are going to continue bagging books. So you may have seen my recent couple of videos where I've taken a run of a book series. Like I've done the first 100 Penguins now, and the next one going out on my main channel is going to be my complete vintage Collins crime White Circle collection, and they look fantastic. And of course I've got all the bags for all the different eventualities now. I've got normal paperback bags, I've got digest size bags, and I've got comic bags, so we're ready basically for any eventuality. So those Collins ones, because I've got some foreign editions and things like that, they do look really, really great, all bagged up. So if you've not watched any of the bagging videos yet, there's one on this channel, there's one on my other channel, but part 3 is going to be on my other channel, then part 4 I'm going to do on here. So I haven't had a thought yet about what I wanted to do next with regards bagging up. I'm thinking I ought to concentrate on the more delicate, really early books. So that's why I've done the first 100 Penguins, because they're all like 1930s, and my Collins books are all 30s and early 40s. So I'm thinking maybe the Albatross books in my collection, they might be worth bagging up. And I could probably do that in one video, but maybe I'd split it into 2. I'm not really sure. I'd like to sort of keep the bagging videos quite themed if I could, but they're all going to be numbered, and I'm going to do one on this channel and then the next one on the other channel and sort of rotate it. But there should be one on this channel about once every 5 weeks or so, something like that. And hopefully you'll enjoy watching it. I've really, really enjoyed bagging the books. They just look fantastic. And of course, because we've pretty much cleaned them over here, all I'm doing before I bag them up is giving them a gentle brush off the top edges where they might have picked up a little bit of dust over the last year or two, and then into the plastic bags they go, and they are looking very, very good because of it. I am sure you will agree. So yeah, so I'm thinking the early Albatross books aren't going to hurt, and I've got some other very, very pre-war sort of paperback series that it would be good to get those done. The Hutchinson's Toucan books and my Gill books, but I am very, very tempted to do like a modern series because where the books are mainly high grade anyway, I think those might end up looking particularly snazzy. But I can't decide what sort of modern series to do. Some of them I'm still actively collecting, or I haven't consequently filmed them because they're an ongoing project. I sort of want to do a modern series that I have actually filmed fairly recently, so the only real series that comes to mind is the compact books, which I did on my main channel about 2 months ago. And although I'm still collecting them, I don't need that many. And I've got a good 100 or so, and they are in nice condition. I've been really strict with my grades on those. So I think if I did a modern series, and I say modern, I am talking sort of 67 to 69, so it's hardly that modern, but not 30s or 40s. So I think those might come up very nice indeed. So they're a possibility. I have also thought, although once again I've got some plans for these, but I'd like to do the Doctor Who books, my Target books, but I have got an idea. They've all been cleaned, so they're all looking as nice as I can get them. But I wanted to do Target books year by year, basically. So it was covering the early years of Target books and working my way historically right through sort of the classic era. So that's my idea. Now I haven't quite got them all. That's the problem. I've got, the first 15 years or more of the Doctor Who books, but some of the tail end ones I haven't. But my friend George has offered to lend me his. He's got them all. And I might well take him up on that, just so that I can do the Doctor Who year by year project, really, which is something I've got in my mind to do, There is a great book which is available online, and that's got all sort of the facts and figures about the books, what the original print run was, how many times it was reprinted, that sort of thing. I think it would make quite a fascinating video series. I can talk about the books as we sort of go along, really, and any interesting bits of trivia. So that's a series I've got planned to do, Doctor Who, the Target books year by year. But we'll see, because I think it's going to take quite a bit of scripting out, that one. But thankfully there weren't that many books each year. There was, maybe some years 7 or 8. There we are, and one book slipped on the floor there. So, yeah, some years just 7 or 8 Target books. So it wouldn't take a lot of work, but the early ones are quite tricky. And as I said, I might need to borrow a few of like the hardback editions from my friend George. He's got a lot of them in hardback, particularly when we get onto the 1980s. But they started in 73, the Doctor Who paperbacks, the Target books, and there was a smattering of paperbacks before that, which I would definitely cover first. And then we would lead into the first 3 from 1973, and I think that would be in itself make a really good sort of first video, So maybe I'll aim to do that. Now that I've spoken to you about it, I've sort of made a bit of a plan in my head about maybe trying to, as a template, knock up that first video, because I do have all the books and I've got them in really nice condition as well. I've got some of the reprints as well, so I can show how the editions changed over the years. I think it'll be quite good, that. In some cases I even know the people who are in the original cover artwork, so I'm sure I can come up with some quite good stuff. I said that video will be over on the main channel in due course, but definitely I'm going to do that. Yeah, definitely going to do that. Get that first part out, potentially in the next month or 2. Yeah, these are coming up okay. So they didn't need a massive clean, and it's just a few of them are dirtier or slightly grubbier than others, you know. I mean, this Nancy Mitford, for example, I bet this is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful penguin book if it was in nicer condition than it is. It's a shame, but you know, there you go. She was quite an interesting character, old Nancy Mitford, and I remember there was a really great biography of her came out by one of her friends, and it had this, I never forget it, it had this photo section inside of Nancy Mitford, and she was friends with like the Queen Mother, okay, and there was a picture of her and the Queen Mother, and the Queen Mother had a double-barreled shotgun because they'd gone out like hunting, and she looked like a gangster. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I've never seen the photo before or since, but it's in this biography of Nancy Mitford. It's really, really good. This great photo of the Queen Mum. It's brilliant. Okay, that's the first half cleaned. And crack on, I need a bit more polish. So if you saw a recent video where I did my hardbacks, there was a lot of Julian Stockwin naval hardbacks which had got sun damaged, unfortunately, and I've now swapped 4 of them out. I found cheap copies online where it's the original hardback editions. I've kept my books because the books are generally, most of mine were signed copies. I've kept the books, but I've swapped the dust wrappers out, so I've upgraded 4 of them now, but there's still about another 4 to go, and there's no sort of cheaper editions out online. They're like a tenner each, which is a lot just for a dust wrapper, isn't it? So I'm reluctant. I've got a few bookmarked in the hope that the price might drop down, but yeah, I paid the price there for those books being stored in a sunny environment, but I literally had nowhere else for them. And some books, it just takes a few days, less than a week, with a bit of bright sunlight on, and that's it, the damage is done. It's as quick as that. So I paid the price. It was, you know, happened 20 years ago. Didn't have as much room as I've got today, you know. My daughter was still living with us at the time. She was just still a teenager. You know, she was just growing up with us. I mean, she's 23 now, but my boy's still with us, and he may well go to university locally, in which case he can stay at home. If he'd have left home, I would have already had his room for a library. What do you mean we need a spare bedroom? My wife would say. Or I would say to my wife. But yeah, so we've got a bagging video, we've got the next pan video. We're still working our way through the pelicans, which I'm enjoying. They're good to go through. In fact, the early pelicans, some of those, first couple of hundred of them could do bagging up. They're not in the greatest, they're quite fragile books, you know. So I think theoretically I should go with the bagging. I should start from my older books to my more recent ones. Plus, I'm less likely to read an original book rather than a more modern one. If anything from the late 40s upwards in Penguin like this is absolutely fine to read. They're quite robust on the whole. But prior to that, wartime and prior to wartime, I'd be a bit reluctant to actually sit down and read an original because of their fragile nature and their collectible value, really. I wouldn't want to make them any worse. And I know what I'm like. I tend to fall asleep reading sometimes, and in bed, that is. So it may not be a good idea. Oh, I can just hear the rain starting outside. A lot of the UK at the moment apparently has got quite a lot of snow, but where I live down in the southwest, we don't tend to get it. I mean, we're talking like 8 or 9 years since we've had snow where I live, you know, so we tend to just get rain. Rain. Good for the ducks, good for your garden, good for the reservoirs. Bad if you're going shopping. Yeah, I must read one of these doctor books. I'm certain I read them as a kid. I'm absolutely certain. I think a friend of mine had a few of them, and but they may have been in hardback, which I think is equally as common as these paperback editions are. You know, they're not scarce at all. I think they've got a similar design as well. Trying as I think of it now. Don't know what the fascination was. I don't really. I mean, I always sort of think of them in the same sort of vein as the Carry On movies, you know, with the Doctor movies, but they're not really. But they are of a humorous nature, shall we say. I haven't watched a Carry On in ages. I really like the early ones. I'm not so much of a fan of from about 1972 up. But anything prior to that I enjoy with Carry On. Right, last pile, guys. And then we'll have to call it a day for today. But we've ended up longer than I thought. It's going to end up being, just under an hour or so, which isn't bad, is it? An hour of cleaning action, which I hope will help you relax. And you've enjoyed looking at the books as well, which of course is what it's all about. And I get to have some nice fresh clean books on my shelves when I put these back. And I've got to admit, it is lovely to know that up to a certain point in my Penguin library, everything has been gone through really thoroughly, and I've taken out all the pencil marks, and the books are looking as clean as they possibly can. And my Pan books, I mean, the end is in sight. We're already on the Pan majors. It isn't going to be that long, and my entire Pan library has been done. And then all that I'll have to do is start going back and bagging them up then, which is of course going to be another job entirely. But it'd be worth doing. But I never thought I'd be quite as impressed as I ended up being with the books that I've bagged. They are much, much better than I thought. It's not cheap. 100 bags. If you buy them in packs of 200, so 2 lots of 100, the bags work out at 11p a bag, which is not cheap when you think I've got 15,000 books to do. But if I only, bag up a couple of hundred a month, I can live with that, so and as I said, they look good, and it is preserving them. If I move house, the paperback library is going to have to go into storage, but I'm going to still want to carry on making videos as best I can. I'll still have the studio here, so what I'll be doing until we move house, so what I'll be doing is everything that's been done and dusted, I'm just going to put into storage because it's already been done. So I'm not going to need access to that. So that'll be the first stuff to get packed away into boxes. But the stuff that I'm still working on, I should still be able to do my cleaning videos and things like that, I'll be able to do my monthly pickups. But during that period when I won't have access to so much of my collection, I might have to do some other things, but it's okay. I'm certain I can come up with some stuff. Hopefully it does happen this year. We do get to move house. I have been here for a long time now, you know, about 18 years or something. It's just about the longest I've stayed anywhere, in actual fact, in my entire life. You know, as a kid I was growing up, we stayed in 3 houses. And then when I left home, I was in a couple of different bed sits. Then I bought a flat, and then I moved here. That's when I met the missus, and that's it. So yeah, we're sort of overdue now, you know. The kids are grown up, and I have this massive desire to have a library and get all the books out. It's just going to be amazing. You know, thin down the toys but expand the books. I think that's how it's going to be. So the Star Wars toys, the action figure part's gone, and I'm slowly working my way through the rest of it, which is going to take a couple of years. Unfortunately, there's so much there to do. And we've got all the Simpsons stuff to do as well, which is another huge undertaking. So it'll all be done in time. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I've certainly enjoyed pulling the books together and getting them looking shipshape. If you have, do please give the video a thumbs up. If you've not already, do please hit the subscribe button. If you can afford it, if you can afford £1 a month or $1 a month, or maybe a little bit more, you can support me through Patreon at patreon.com/JulesBurt. Really does help. I've got about 28 Patreon supporters, and I've got YouTube channel memberships on my other channel, so you will get your name in the credits in time if you fancy a bit of lasting immortality. But if not, you know, do please just subscribe. That's absolutely fantastic to me, and it does make all the difference. Next week, as I'm pretty sure it's vintage Pan Majors, so the first of the Pan Majors next week, I think. So look out for those. But until then, thanks very much for watching today, and I shall look forward to seeing you again in a week's time with another clean video. There we are.